everybody. It's Ken Kmet, condovoice.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're talking about SB 154, Senate Bill 154. It's the current legislation currently going through the Florida legislature that has to deal with the law passed last year, the Florida Building Safety Act, or Florida Building Safety Law, otherwise known as SB 4D, or the Sunrise Law, or Champlain Towers Law. And if you don't know, real quick, that law was enacted due to the fact that 98 people died in the collapse of the building Champlain Towers South. And the insurance industry is concerned. Um, everyone is concerned about this. So I want to say right up front, I am 100% in support of what's needed here. This law is needed, and it's been needed for some time. And I'm going to show you some documents and some history on this to support that. But I have a question. How are we doing this? How are we going to fix this problem? All right, we need some serious answers to that, and we need to know what it's going to cost. Sorry, but you can't just pass legislation and wonder what it's going to cost, because I know from being in the condo HOA industry for 40 years, if I say that these two magical words, special assessment, all of a sudden I get your attention. Why? What do we need that for? Why isn't it in the budget? What happened? Something happened. What happened? Okay. Well, something happened. And but things like this don't happen on their like a one-timer. This is not a one-timer. This is something the entire industry needs to address. So this SB 154, it was introduced early on. It's already got 14 amendments to it. It's probably going to wind up with more. I hope it does. And I've made some suggestions to a lot of people about what I think it needs too. And maybe that's a conversation for another time or another video I'm going to post. But I know one thing. You have to justify a special assessment. So if you're going to assess people, I've just learned, and it's right and it's fair, you better have your ducks in a row. You better have a full explanation prior to even saying those two words, because you know people are going to want to know why. So you got to have the why ready. And uh, the why isn't what I'm addressing in this video. It's the cost. Now, I have a concern. So up until now, everything that I've read that they've published has very little to do with what it's going to cost. So, and I wonder why. Why would they not do that? So I can think of several reasons why, and some are innocent and some are not so innocent. So I'm not going to suggest any of those. But what I want to do right now is I'm going to tell you what it's going to cost. So maybe one of the reasons why they couldn't tell you is because they don't know. They don't have the ability to know. So this video is based on the fact that I'm going to make that assumption. They just don't know how to figure it. Well, I do. So, and I can tell you that I can put you in the ballpark of this because I've been through it. I've been through hundreds of these building restoration projects on the coast, inland, whatever. And I've been involved in I've worn every hat that you can imagine in this entire process. So let me sum this up by saying I'm going to take you through a spreadsheet that I spent quite a while developing here over the last week. And I feel it's fairly accurate. I took a few liberties and a few freedoms, but you have to, because there's no way to accurately predict this. But let's at least get a handle on this thing. Let's at least get an idea of what this is going to cost, because it's a special assessment. It's been passed. It's a law. This time they need to stick to the law. Don't back down. Make sure this thing gets done, and let's fix this problem. But let's fix it right. And there's a lot of work left to do on this bill, on this law. I'm telling you, there's a lot of work left to do on it. So stay tuned. We're going to hop right on that spreadsheet. So Houston, we have a problem, and this movie clip illustrates that. And it illustrates exactly where we're at on this as far as the community involved. And there's nobody who's innocent here. We all have sins of omissions with this, so nobody needs to be throwing stones. However, we need to do this correctly. We need to do it efficiently, responsibly, professionally. We need to do it not with haste, which is what's going on here. Okay, we need to slow this train down, and we need to do this job right. Okay, let's not making it worse by guessing. Okay, that's what they ran into, and that's what the mission controller said. Let's not make this problem worse by guessing. Let's not rush into this. Let's think through it carefully, professionally, and let's get this right.
How'd you figure that?
I can add.
Jack, they've got half the PhDs on the planet
Houston
working
says
on
are
this
right
thing.
on the money.
And what if they had made a mistake, all right, and there was no way to reverse it? Do you think they would tell us? There's no reason for them to tell us.
What do you mean they're not going to tell us? That's bullshit.
All right, there's 1,000 things that have to happen in order. We are on number 8. You're talking about number 692.
And in the meantime, I'm trying to tell you we're coming in too fast. I think they know it, and I think that's why we don't have a goddamn re-entry plan, all right?
Duly noted. Thank you, Jack.
Ow! God damn it!
Hey!
Piece of shit!
This piece of shit's going to get you home.
All right.
That's because that's the only thing we got left, Jack.
Now, what are you saying, Fred?
Well, I think you know what I'm saying.
Now, wait a minute. All I did was stir those tanks.
What was that gauge reading before you hit the switch?
Hey, don't tell me how to fly the damn CM, all right?
You don't
They brought
even
me in
know,
here
do ya?
to do a job. They asked me to stir the damn tanks, and I stirred the tanks.
Jack, stop kicking yourself in the ass.
This is not my fault.
No one is saying it is. If I'm in the left-hand seat when the call comes up, I stir the tanks.
Yeah, well, tell him that.
I just asked you what the gauge was reading.
All right, we're not
And
gonna...
you don't know.
All right, look, we're not doing this, gentlemen. We are not going to do this. We're not going to go bouncing off the walls for 10 minutes, because we're just going to end up right back here with the same problems. Trying to figure out how to stay alive.
Aquarius, this is Houston.
Are we on Vox?
No, we're not on Vox.
Yeah, Houston, this is Aquarius. Go ahead.
Okay, so first thing I want to do is explain that every bill, once it gets to a certain point in the life of itself, it has a summary analysis created by the people that supposedly are writing the legislation. Apparently, it shows you the research gone into it, the reason, the current status, the current state of the problem, and what the fix is. So, but in every summary analysis that I've read, and I've read a lot of them over the years, having published a newspaper for 15 years in the condo industry called the Association Advisor, I kept track of all the legislation that went through every year. We did that for 15 years. I haven't done that for a while. But anyway, so I'm brushing up on my old skills. But every summary analysis has a fiscal impact to the public and private sector. Public means government, what's going to cost the government to do all this. And the private sector is what's going to cost you and me, or those affected by the law. So in this summary analysis, what's curiously missing is any fiscal impact information. And the reason I'm showing you this particular document is this is House Bill 7069. This, I don't think it has a date on it, but this goes back to like February of last year. This was the precursor bill to the eventual SB4D, which got passed in a special session. This bill failed in the regular session, and then it got resurrected, and there was some roofing and some insurance and of course the building safety, and they resulted in SB4D and SB2D. 2D was related to insurance. SB4D was merged with a roofing bill, and which had to do with insurance. That's a video for another time, and the safety law. So here we go. I just want to show you in this document, because what I do whenever I get one of these documents, I go through and I highlight all the little details on it. Anyway, this just says this was the state. This is what happened on June 24, 2021. Champlain Tower South collapsed, resulting in the death of 98 people. And it gives a little history on it. It talks about corrosion, spalling, and cracking of the building's columns and beams in the underground parking garage. Now, according to news reports, the association also delayed the repairs of the issues identified in the engineering reports because of infighting among members of the association. Put a pin in that, because we're going to do a whole video on that. There's a lot of things involved in this law, and there's a lot of reasons. How did we get here? That's another video I'm going to make. But anyway, I just want to point out to you right now, before we get into the actual numbers, two things. The building code that's currently in effect only applies to new construction, does not apply to existing buildings. Okay, that's very important. Put a pin in that. We're going to make a whole video on that. I've already made some suggestions to the powers that be, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with something on a solution basis for that. Now, back in 2008, we passed a law like this regarding building inspections and reserves, this sort of thing. And Guess what? It got rescinded in 2010. The legislature repealed the requirement in 2010. Read along with me, folks. According to the news reports, the legislature repealed the inspection requirement because the inspections were too expensive. They were too expensive. Those words right now sound pathetic, don't they? Okay, we had a great financial crisis, GFC, 2009, 2008. And but how's it looking now? I have known as a property manager for so long, especially managing coastal condominiums, that this corrosion problem, it just it's not going to wait for anybody. So for there to be delays in human behavior or decision making is bad because corrosion isn't going to wait. Okay. Is it too expensive? Expensive, it's like the word soon. What does it mean? What's expensive? It doesn't look expensive now. It may feel expensive because you're going to write a check for a lot more than you ever thought you would, but it's not expensive because it's got to be done. Okay, so here's some facts and figures. There are 2 million residents estimated to be occupying condominiums 30 years or older. Interesting, because the 30 years or older group, you're the ones that need to get it done first. So let's see. Yeah, and the building code does not contain requirements for the maintenance inspection of existing buildings. That's the problem. We need to do that. So let me keep scrolling here. This is quite the thing. Another point that you can put a pin in, there are 40,000 or so licensed engineers who are eligible to practice, and there's 11,300 architects. Now, this is some of the inspection requirements here, the reserve study, the SIRS that has to be done. This is just a lot of stuff that, again, we're gonna make a bunch of videos based on this document and the current document, which I'll show you in a minute. But let's see. Okay, I just want to scroll down to the money part. All right. There's another thing here. It does mention management companies. I just want to say something while I'm scrolling. I have never in my 40 years been able to make a board member or a group of people serving on a board do anything or act upon anything. Okay, they act upon it because they want to. They tell me what to do. I'm just the head gopher. I'm just the hired runner. Okay, I just get it done. They tell me what to do. I get it done. So let me just say we're going to come back to this because to put a manager in harm's way here for any reason whatsoever is just wrong. Okay, it's just wrong, and I will justify that statement in a full video. Trust me, because it hits home to me. That's for sure. Okay, so here we go. Here's all this stuff. All right, and if you don't do this, it becomes a breach of a board member's fiduciary duty. Okay, if it's going to become that level and it's going to become enforceable, like they're going to come after you, who's going to serve? Who's going to serve on these boards? Okay, all right. I mean, not only is this going to cost a small fortune, but it's like, okay, who's going to serve? Talks about the effect of the bill. Okay, we got more effect of the bill. Okay, termination. Look, I'm just saying that, excuse me, I've got allergies this time of year and just, I might have to take a drink here too. Let's talk about economic waste. Again, this is another video we're going to make. Economic waste. Does it make sense once you get your special assessment for your particular condominium and you look at that price tag and you go into that semi-shock state? The question is going to be, is this worth doing? Is this worth fixing? Maybe we should tear the whole thing down. We'll get back to that. I've got an in-depth study on that too. Okay, here we go. We're getting down to it. Okay, here we go. So appropriation. That means that the legislature has appropriated certain funds. So it does appropriate money to the DPPR, a total of $500,000 from a trust fund, and they're going to use that to implement provisions of the bill. So that's pretty vague, but that's just a little bit of money. That's like nothing. That's like a drop in a hat. Expenditures. Okay. Fiscal analysis and economic impact statement. Fiscal impact on state government. Revenues, none. It's not going to generate any money. Expenditures, I just told you, $500,000 roughly. On local governments, no income and expenditures. Yeah, there's going to be expenditures. It is unclear what the cost will be, if any, for local building departments to enforce such a program. It's on my spreadsheet. Trust me, just wait. Grab a cup of tea, grab a drink, because we're going to be here a little bit. Here we go. Okay, and I just wanted to, yeah, I have my own little notes in here too. Direct economic impact on the private sector. Condominium and cooperative associations and unit owners in those communities may, you've got to be kidding me, incur additional expenses related to recertifications and reserve studies. However, the bill may have a positive economic impact on condominium and cooperative associations by alerting them to necessary building repairs before the cost of such repairs increases. Okay, that's true. That's actually a true statement. And I can prove that. But that's like, seriously? Okay. According to news reports, the cost of repairs Champlain Towers, identified in the 2018 report, increased from over 9 million in 2008 to over 12 million in 2020. That's true. And with the latest CPI, yeah, it's you put this off anymore, all it's gonna do is just cost you more money. Not only is the building gonna age and the deterioration is gonna get worse and the cost of repair is gonna be greater, okay, because the scope is gonna increase the older these get. Okay, not only that, you've got CPI to worry about, and that's becoming significant. Okay, so it talks about fiscal comments, talks about the average cost of an inspection, 20,000 to 40,000, in an average mid-rise condo, coastal condo. Um, let's see. Okay, so that's enough of this document. Let's put this document away. Now, here, let me move this around. Now we're going to jump into the spreadsheet. And I want to, but before I do that here, I just want to make sure. Right. Okay. Actually, that's just a document that I'd sent everybody on the policy committee. And let's see. Okay. So here's the document. Now, let me see if I can just increase this just a little bit, make it a little easier. All right, here we go. We're going to start right here. So this is the private sector cost. Now, all these figures right here, I got directly from the state. They have this information and they're gathering more. You all had to report. Anybody with 3 stories or greater had to report your building stats to them. I'm waiting on them sending me the detailed report on that. But anyway, it's just interesting here. I'm going to stop and show you. 31% were built in the 70s and 21% in the 80s. And look how it dropped down in the 90s to 9% and then back up in the just after the turn of the century. And then we've just got 3% recently. So, a lot of buildings built that are 30 to 50 years old. A lot. Okay, that many associations. All right. So we're looking at a cost of that for your first phase inspection. That's it. And so you can look at that. You can say, okay, we got this many inspections, really 1901 probably, but a portion of that, because some of those are not going to technically probably have to do it, but most of them will. So this is your total. Okay, we just put in a factor. I'm just multiplying numbers here. So then we've got dollars per unit. So this is your dollar cost per unit. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so the first phase is visual. There's no investigation. There's no intrusive actions. They're not going to demolition anything. They're not going to really tear apart anything. They're not going to drill holes and look inside. And I've done a lot of that. You drill holes. You take a video camera with a cable on it. You go in there and you look inside. You do all that stuff. But that's not going to happen in the first phase. That's why it's only going to cost you that. Number 2, you've got the second phase. That's where we get crazy and we say, okay, we're going to look for anything and everything. So one of the things I just want to stop and say right here, again, this is something we're going to talk about in another video. In one of the amendments to SB 154, because the reserve people, the people that do reserve studies and stuff, lobbied the state hard because they saw, I believe, a potential for making income there. And then we also had a need. We had a need because we only have that many engineers and architects to service this. And how many condo associations do we have? Okay, 27,000. And I don't know what portion of these are going to have to get inspected. Okay, obviously, but the majority will. So, are there enough licensed architects and engineers to do the work, to do all these inspections, the first and the second phase, by the deadline, which now has been extended a little bit. We'll get into that. Anyway, I just want to stay on the numbers because otherwise we're going to be here all night. So Anyway, I believe the older the condo, the more it's going to cost. I've done these inspections and I've been on these inspections and I've ordered them and I've read them. And I know this is, I think, a good number. The 20 to 40,000, forget about it. That was written a while ago, and we've got increase in services dramatically increased like crazy here in the last 24 months. So, and like I say, the longer you put that off, the more it's going to cost you. So here's our total. So for the first and second phase inspections, the overall commerce cost to the state of Florida, to the residents of these buildings, $1,239,000. Okay. So that breaks out if you say there's this many units, okay, here's your unit column, all right, of each of these type of condos. Then you just do the math and you've got 1,443, 1,200, 1,900. And we're just assuming that these guys right here that are 0 to 20 years old, it's voluntary at this point. But you should do one anyway. So this sheet does not include that. So then you've got your structural integrity reserve study you have to do. Those aren't going to be cheap either. So if I was a reserve study company, I would sure be wanting to do that work. Getting back to that point, what the amendment does, it allows a SERS company, okay, a reserve study analysis company, to work under an engineer or an architect in I'm just going to say it simply, and they're gonna go out and do the first phase, and that enables them to do the first phase, so they can take the information back to the engineer or architect and say, here you go. They'll review it, they'll stamp it, they'll say, okay, I've looked at it and I've approved it. But I just want to put a side note here. I'm betting there isn't one engineer or architect. And by the way, I hope you guys that drew up these amendments talk to the engineer society and the architect society prior to doing this, because trust me, I've been involved in this engineering industry for a long time. I personally don't know of an engineer or an architect that would let someone else go out and do that work, and that my firm or my person is going to be responsible for that report, okay, without me having done it myself. There's no way. How can I trust somebody? Because in all fairness to the reserve folks, I've ordered these reserve studies before. Sorry, these companies are pressured to keep the price down so that the condos and HOAs will actually get them done, because they weren't required to get them done. And it's only financially responsible for them to do that because they can have a better idea of what they should have in their reserves so they can fund it or not. So it's just, there's books on this stuff, okay? And sorry, it's just the truth. Every reserve study I've ever ordered and looked at has left out components. I mean, where are the seawalls? Where is a lot of the stuff? I'm going, okay, wait, I know this building pretty well. You didn't cover certain things. So the reserve studies, what I'm trying to say is, for a reserve study company to provide a report that they're used to doing, okay, to an engineer, and they're used to doing it much more detailed, okay, and in a totally different manner. I just think it's unrealistic to think that just because the legislature said that we're going to allow this, that it's actually going to happen. I just think very few engineers and architects are going to allow that to happen under their seal. I just plus the insurance liability. Come on. So again, and I wish that someone would listen, because that sounds great for right now. Like, oh, we've taken care of that. You haven't taken care of anything, because until I see that happen, I bet you it doesn't happen. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so the SERS, let's just say they're 10,000 apiece. All right. So we've got a total SERS of about, let's just say $200,000. Let's see. Right, 200,000. Right, 200,000. And we got 1.2 mil here on the first two. So we have a grand total here of SERS and first and second inspections. We're talking $2,000, $1,700, $1,500, and $1,300 a unit. That's a one-time cost. And then you've got, here's what's going to happen. You've got remedial repairs that are going to come out of that visual inspection. You're going to have recommendations, because they're not going to leave that building without telling you, hey, you're going to have to paint this or caulk that or do something. Let's just say you're going to get a $5,000 assessment for the remedial repairs, because you don't know when these other repairs are going to be done. And you might have something that's imminent that you got to take care of. You might have something in imminent failure that you've got to actually just remove. Sometimes it's just easier just to remove something if it's going to fall down than to try and get crazy and temporarily support it. I mean, why save it? If it isn't necessary to the building, then get rid of it. So I just think you're going to have another 5,000 per unit. All right. So then we've got total dollars, including M1 repairs, 7 billion. Is that billion? 7,648,820,000. Right. It's 7 billion. And actually, I was wrong when I was looking at this thing. I'm going to go, okay, I've gone over this before. That's 1.2 billion. Okay. That's right. That's 1.2 billion. That's 190 million. Okay. And that's 7.6 billion. All right. So we're growing. You can see this thing is not going to be cheap. So I've got M2 repair cost estimates per unit. I'm looking at 150,000 for the older ones, 125, 190. I'm telling you, I've done this before. In the old days, in the 70s and 80s, when we had to do this, it was 10 grand a unit. I don't know why. Whether it's 30 units, 50 units, 100 units, it's just the economies of numbers works out to a certain percentage. And these days, allowing for what things cost these days, that's your cost. Now you've got a self-inspect repair. That's what I'm saying. You're going to have some repairs done. Total second inspection repairs, $144 billion. Right, 144 billion, 94,835,000 and some change. $144 billion. I apologize for my coughing here. So, total cost, all repairs. That's my total cost of commerce, 151 billion, 743,655,000. Total cost, repairs and all inspections, 153 billion bucks. All right, so cost per unit in 2023, if you're older, 160, let's say. A little younger, 130, then you got 100, 96, 55, and 35. Okay, if you wait, so we're going to scroll down here, I'm going to show you, if you allow for 7%, and I don't think inflation's going away. If it does, good luck with that. And I don't believe the 7%. I think it's more like, depending on what you're buying, whether it's food's like 30%. So, but in terms of construction repairs and services, service wages are way higher than that. They are. So we're talking about a total commerce to the state of Florida that's going to come out of your pocket. If you're affected by this bill, if you have to comply with this bill, $301 billion. $301 billion. Let's call it 302. And if you wait, it's only going to cost you more. If you want to wait for 5 years, which it could take you 5 years, so you're going to add another 28% to the cost of these repairs. So instead of 156, it's going to cost you 204 or 235, and you see the rest there as it flows. All right, so that's what we're talking about. So somebody asked me the other day, and it's funny. So I saw a news report like 2 days ago, and I've been working on this for weeks. They were just shooting from the hip, and somebody said they were looking at 160,000, for their repairs. So I went, yeah, that's probably about right. So here we go. We're going to scroll down now, and we're going to look at how this is going to affect your budgets. All right. So first of all, your insurance has gone up, and guess what? The word on the street right now, and what we're experiencing right now in our condos, is a 50%, 60%, 70% increase in your insurance renewals during 2023. So again, if we use the same numbers in terms of number of units, associations, that kind of thing, we're talking about the master policy. So the master policy wouldn't apply to a unit, it would apply to a whole building. So I just picked a number. Here's where I got a little freewheeling. And I just said, okay, look, let's just, we're kind of looking at a 30 to 50 unit condo. That's really what this whole sheet is premised on. That's about average. I mean, you've got them 100, 200, all that, I know. And you've got them a lot smaller. There's a lot of small condos on the beach. And so let's just pick a number. Let's just say that the average policy is 55 a year now, 55,000. you're going to have a 60% increase plus 7% for inflation. You're going to have 36. So the increase, the increase of the 36,000, if you take that per unit, if you say I've got 105,000 units of that age and that grouping, okay, it's going to cost another $55 a unit just for insurance to your monthly maintenance fees. That's per unit per month. Then you've got your so that's the total annual cost then in 2023. And so in a budget, in a condo budget, typical condo budget, insurance can run anywhere from 10 to 20% of that budget. It's usually one of the biggest items in it. So I'm just saying I believe that 12, 13% is what that's going to be a part of your budget. If you project that out 10 years, okay, instead of the annual cost of insurance being 91,850, it could be 180,000 for again a typical condominium. So you got to add that to your monthly maintenance fees. All right. So not only are you going to have the special assessment from above, 150, 160, now we're adding to our budget. Now let's get to reserves. Okay, this is all increase to your monthly maintenance fees. This is what this is. So we're going to use the same numbers, the same age, the same all of that. You're going to get phase one and phase two. Um, this assumes this assumes your phase one and phase two repairs are completed or special assessed to pay the cost. That means this is going to come out of your budget. So what this sheet here is, it's saying once you get your reserve study done, it's going to give you recommendations on what to fund. And I'm going to do a whole nother video on the fact that reserve people have no clue of what concrete restoration costs. They don't. Sorry, I'll sit right now with any one of you and say, I know what it costs, and even I have a hard time figuring out, and I've lived it. Okay. There's no way you're going to look in a book and say, oh, I can figure that out. Okay. And curiously enough, there's some language in SB 154 that says regarding the reserve studies, again, this is a whole nother video. Okay, that says if we can't figure out what that anticipated cost is, you don't have to have one. Seriously? Concrete restoration, when the steel rusts inside your concrete floors and walls and roofs and all that stuff. And it's very difficult to know what that's going to cost because you can't see it. It's hidden. It's hidden damage, and it's aging as we speak. And it takes a engineer on his best day to figure out what it's going to cost because I've done those inspections. You got to sound test it. You got to do all this. Okay. You got to get the floor coatings off. You got to do your diligence in order to come up with a number that's even believable. Okay. You do because there's all kinds of damage that can happen. And the depth of the steel and the condition of the concrete and the amount of chlorides in that concrete and just the pH of it. There's so much that goes into the drilling and the testing and the research to figure out, okay, how bad is it? It's like taking a blood test, like sticking a needle in your arm. You send it to the lab, they tell you how you're doing. But that's just an indicator. It's not real. You have to live it. All right. So anyway, we're going to assume that the average monthly maintenance fee is $500 right here. This column right here. All right. And we got the same associations, 27,588. Basic reserves. We're saying that the basic reserve, just the paving, roofing, and the painting, is going to be $75 of that. All right. Then you've got, and that's just partial. That's what most people just fund. If you fully fund those, okay, we're saying that's how much it can be. It can be 10 times what you're funding now. See, that's the wild card here. That's the one thing I'll admit about this is no associations. Well, I don't want to say no, but very few actually 100% fund their reserves and have from day one. I mean, it just doesn't happen, especially if you're in a new condo. You're saying, oh, everything's new. Let's not fund those. Let's waive them every year. And that's what happens. You get in the habit of doing that. And then you get behind the eight ball and all this stuff's happening and nobody wants to bring it up. If you bring it up, it's like, get out of here. We don't want to hear that. Or you're fired, or we'll recall you, or whatever they're going to say. All right. They don't want to hear that word special assessment, and they don't want those fees to go up. Realtors are the worst. Sorry, folks. You're the worst. Everyone's got a finger to blame here to point to, and everyone is at fault here. I just want to say that too. Everyone is. Everyone. So let's not go throwing stones. We all live in glass houses. But I want to say realtors, they walk into a condo and they say, "Oh, the fees are too high. I can't sell it if the fees are too high." And then what they do, they look at the board and the manager's saying, "Well, you're not managing it right. Why? Because you're a realtor. You come in for a week and you try to tell us what the maintenance fee should be. It's ridiculous. It's irresponsible and it's reckless." And I've had it happen to me time and time again. You have no idea. I don't have any idea until I've lived it. Okay. What the exact cost of running that condo is and what those fees are. Every condo is different. Every single one of them is different by design. So they don't look all cookie cutter. Well, there's a few big places. They build them all the same and everybody's got the same fee. But by and large, especially on the coastal condos, they're unique, they're usually expensive, and they're built that way so that they can attract a bigger price at sale. And so I'm just saying that when you add on the SIRS, okay, all right, this is what we're looking at right here. Subtotal for the new monthly maintenance fees. All right, we're talking if you had 500 before, right here, I apologize. 500 before, it's going to be 1100. You had 500 here. If you're a little younger, it's going to be 1,000. So we're talking about a doubling of your monthly maintenance fees just from reserves alone. Okay. Now, if we add the insurance, which is 55, I'm just saying this is a rough average, really rough average. We're looking at that's your increase. So it's more than double. Your fees are going to more than double, on that kind of a scale. Then, if we look at over the next 10 years, if we apply the 7% year over year CPI, look what we're talking about. We're talking $2,000 a month 10 years from now as an average monthly maintenance fee of a coastal condominium. $2,000 a month. Okay. And if you're at $1,000 a month right now, I'll let you guess at what that number would be. Is it going to be 2,500? Is it going to be 3,000? Get used to that number because that's what's coming, folks. That's what's coming. And I'm not complaining and I'm not like bashing anybody about this, but it's time to get real. We got to fix these problems. People died. More people are going to die if we don't. We got to do this, but we better do it right, gosh darn it, or we're gonna just make the problem worse. All right. So, and no more delays by boards. Okay, that's over. Okay, you need to know that this law needs to support you as a board member. And if anybody's out there in the cheap seats and you think you can do a better job, okay, stop it because you can't. All right, and everyone needs to raise their game here. Board members need to raise their game, and people need to serve. And you know what? I've got another idea too. I got a lot of good ideas. Everyone should be made to serve on the board 1 year as a qualification for owning a unit. It just has to. They do that in Europe, by the way. They actually teach their kids to be community. They sweep the stairs and to do stuff like that. I know. I know some people that live in Europe. They take their communities seriously, and that's what they do. So you've got to get involved. You can't look away. Investors, you're going to be involved or don't invest. It's just that simple because this is the problem. You've got to maintain the structural integrity of your building. End of story. Okay, now I want to talk about the public sector. So that's what's not getting talked about. Not only is the private sector impact not getting talked about in a realistic way, because they want to get this legislation through without talking about what it's going to cost because they know it's going to go, what are you talking? Well, why well, you have to. So look, the legislature needs to stay strong. Board members, if you're in power right now, if you're in your board right now, just stay strong. Everyone needs to stay strong on this, okay? Because it's got to get done. It's got to get done. Now, how we do it needs to be left to the professionals. That's another video for another time. But anyway, we've got division of okay. So in one of the amendments, and this wasn't, by the way, guys, it wasn't reported properly on the website, on the state website. You got your numbers wrong on your publications. Anyway, the latest one is that they want the division of condominiums and timeshares. They want 10 more people to manage this workload. And I called it, basically it's an average salary of $50,000 a year. So they're talking $500,000 of recurring. That's going to be recurring costs. And they want a one-time $67,193. Recurring funds, they want $1 million a year for recurring costs. And then, so the Florida Building Commission is going to be another video. I keep saying there's going to be another video. There's definitely going to be another video on this one. But They got it in the language of the bill right now that they only want 250,000. Well, that's wrong. That's going to be way insufficient. All right, so let's by their own declaration, they're saying there's 2 million condo owners that are going to be affected by this. 2 million. Well, if we've got 2 million in cost, it's going to cost $1 a unit. All right, just put a pin in that. I actually proposed to the committee, the Fiscal Policy Committee members, that the Florida Building Commission be appropriated funds that are going to be needed. Again, I'll explain all in another video of basically $3 million. All right, because we need a building restoration building code. We don't have one, and we need one. We've needed one for a long time. I'm involved in the industry heavily. Anybody who's in the industry says, "Yep, we need one. No question there." We need to develop one. That's a $1.7 million project. That's just for the first year. And then you need salaried people to research it. There's a lot of research that needs to be done on this bill. A lot. There's a lot of specific information that we haven't even looked at yet. This is all general stuff. And this is way too expensive. Well, I don't want to say the word expensive. I apologize. It's just way too costly. It's way too important for the amount of work that this legislation needs not to get done. And it needs to get done quickly by qualified people. So we need 20 salaries qualified. I'm talking $80,000, $85,000 a year type, qualifications. So if if those same 2 million taxpayers pay that, you're talking 2.63. You add in the one time for the first year, it's $3.50 a piece. $3.50 a piece. You guys can afford that. That should not be paid by people not affected, okay, and that don't have to comply with this law. Because so for example, what I'm going to get down to here is the local government. So the recent amendments are giving more and more power and duty and tasks to the local building officials. All right, that's going to be another video for another time. So they have to review the first phase inspection, the second phase, they have to put notices out. There's a lot of stuff that they're going to have to do. Currently, there's 9,237 of these local building officials, all right, according to their numbers. Okay. I'm talking about right here that I've got to imagine, if I'm just doing rough numbers, they're going to have to hire at least one more person to be an assistant to that person to handle this workload, dedicated solely for the purpose of just handling these coastal condos and just this problem, so that the other townspeople aren't affected. Those people that live in that same town with these coastal condominiums, they have to comply. Those things should never touch each other. There should be an arm's length between the operations and the costs of both. General taxpayer money shouldn't, not one penny of general taxpayer money should go toward this. Not one penny. Because this is not something where, we're getting taxed for the roads and we can all drive on the road if we want to or not. Okay. So think 2009 and the beach renourishment project here. I'm just going to scroll down here. Okay. Think about that. So there's a big brouhaha over the fact that we were using federal funds and we were basically going to renourish what amounts to a private beach because you couldn't access it. Okay. You got condo. And then, every now and then you might have a beach access by a city or town. Well, the solution to that was, sorry about my typos there, there's a lot of them. Okay, we're going to create these little beach accesses, and we're going to have all these little parking areas on the other side of Gulf Boulevard or the A1A or whatever's on the East Coast or up in the Panhandle and say, okay, you can park here. Only so many people can park there, and you can walk down this tiny little sidewalk that splits between these two condos, and you can get to that beach. That was the solution. So basically it says, okay, we can use taxpayer money as long as we can use the facility, which in this case was a beach. My thing is, and also that's going to be like a toll road. Look, this isn't going to exist forever, okay? But we got to get from point A to point B. So my thing is, I know, you ready? Get drum roll here, okay? If you use one penny of taxpayer money for any of this stuff, I get to use any swimming pool of any condo that took the money or that was affected by this anytime I want within their rules, within reasonable rules set by that condo association. They're not going to go for that. You know that. So, but the same reasoning applies. So all I'm saying is right here, right now, stop. Don't rush this through without being responsible to the people that do not have to comply and assure them that no taxpayer money is going to go to fund this. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not. I'm just saying it's not. I get passionate about it because it's just not. And let me just say on the other side of that coin, and now this is becoming an editorial, but the point is they need to fix their building because if they don't, it's going to adversely affect my property value. All right, because it's going to bring down the entire industry. Now, here's where I get concerned about unintended effects. Okay, I know these fees are going to go up, but on the other hand, it's going to give security and credibility to the integrity of the structure of those buildings. So I don't think it's going to decrease property values because your fees are going up. That's the cost of living in paradise. And I've heard that from honest people that live on the beach. Hey, I can afford it. I can live here. It's what I want. It's what I can afford. Well, if you can afford to live there, then don't live there on the backs of people that are living not on that beach and not having those enjoyments and expecting that taxpayer money to go to your pocket. It shouldn't happen. We're not talking about a lot of taxpayer money here either. So in principle, this is an easy thing to do. And when I'm talking about $300 per year, okay, here's the cost of what this is going to be to all these towns which have these officials that keep getting more and more responsibility placed on them. Okay, we're talking about $300 a year. So somehow in those towns, those designated buildings, and those buildings need to be identified, they need to pay $300 a year. Okay, that's just it, of the people living in it. So that's just add that to your monthly maintenance fee because that's really what's going to go. Instead of it going into your bank account, it's going to get paid to the government to administer the public sector cost. That's what I'm saying. All right. So, and that is it. So let me just wrap by saying total commerce. This is money over a 10-year period. And I'll tell you what, in my opinion, it's going to take 10 years to do this. It could be maybe more than $300 billion to carpenters, stucco guys, painters, general contractors, engineers, architects, reserve study people, electricians, concrete plants, manufacturers, people to supply products to all these restoration contractors. I'm very, very, very knowledgeable of all the products that are used because at one point in my life I sold them, and it was briefly, but I got to know every product that was on the market. I knew its purpose. I knew where to use it, where not. All this stuff. I know what it costs, and this stuff ain't cheap. And that was back then. This is now. So what I'm saying is everyone's sitting there, and attorney firms and management companies and construction managers. Okay, construction managers. There's another video. Okay, there's some stuff here that's got to get done. There's a lot of stuff that's got to get done. And I have some great ideas to solve the problem. But it's just going to take a little bit of time. We got to slow this thing down and say, hold on, folks, great idea. Okay, now we know what's going to cost. Now let's do this right. Okay, let's not mess around with this. Let's not throw some money at this thing. Let's do it right. And I'm all for doing this right. So that's a huge commerce boost. And that's a huge level in maintenance fees. Okay, again, remember, $300 needs to be tacked onto that for the public sector fiscal impact, in my opinion. All right, so that's my video for now. I know this was long, but I think you can see the value in this. You can argue these numbers all you want. You can argue them all you want. And you know what? I want you to. I want us all to. Let's all treat this as a community project and say, well, what's it going to cost? But I can tell you, if you brought in some engineers and we put a panel together and we got out the history books and we looked at their projects they've done and we looked at the condo books and the managers and the property managers, we looked at all this stuff. I'm not going to get a big disagreement, I don't think. And I just talked to a whole bunch of insurance people, and this 50 to 100% increase in insurance is going to happen. We need to do something about that. And here's the thing. If we implement this and get this done, when insurance companies and lenders see the effort that this is, okay, I bet you our insurance rates are going to drop. I really do, if we don't get a hurricane. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Come on down to condovoice.com. Listen, send me an email through the website. I'd be happy to respond to you. If you got questions, if you want to help me upgrade my spreadsheet here, a lot of work you can see went into this. And I'm not a math brainiac either, but I am a property manager and I am a lot of things: contractor, distributor, manufacturer. I've done it all, and I know what this stuff costs, and that's what it does. So now that we know what the cost is, let's get to work improving this law so that it serves the public in a responsible manner, and the tax and the cost of this is equitable. Okay, I want you to remember that word. If I leave, I'm going to just say this. This needs to be done equitably. This only affects certain buildings, and we need to better define those buildings. We can. We have the technology. We have the ability. What we need is the Florida Building Commission to put together a group of experienced, qualified people that care and are passionate about this, and come up in 12 months with a game plan that's going to work, that's going to knock your socks off, that's going to be fair and equitable, that's going to get the job done, it's going to reduce the cost. Why should someone that doesn't have severe corrosion problems, that's been improperly identified, okay, as a building that needs to comply, why should they go through all of the costs associated with doing these inspections and doing all this stuff when they actually don't need to? At the end of the day, they're going to find out, oh, you really didn't need to do this. Well, that should happen now. We should identify these buildings now, and we can, and we should, and it's irresponsible not to do that. That's a video for another time. So I welcome any and all inquiries. Please get a hold of me at condovoice.com. We've got a contact button on there. Just come down, send me an email. Glad to hear from you. God bless you all. God bless us all. And you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.